Welcome. I'm Lee Cowan, and this is Here Comes the Sun, a closer look at some of the people, places, and things we bring you every weekend on Sunday morning. Long before Michael Douglas found success in Hollywood, he was just another fledgling theater student. That's pretty hard to believe considering his legendary lineage. His parents were movie stars Kirk Douglas and theater actor Diana Douglas. But as he told our Mo Rocca, acting didn't necessarily come easily.
At first, Michael didn't make quite the same impression as his parents.
Did you perform in this space?
Oh yeah, right here on this stage, with my little wastebasket right off stage. I used to get sick every time. I had terrible stage fright.
Right.
It's terrible stage fright. And then dive and come on out and give it my all.
Later in the show, Michael Douglas on raising his children as an older father.
What has it been like raising two children in your 50s, 60s, and into your 70s?
I have to thank my kids, Dylan and Karis. They're just extraordinary beings, and I probably certainly have to thank their mom and Catherine. They've just been a joy. We've had no issues per se. Had a lovely life together. Dylan is completely out of school now, and Karis got one more year of college. And but they brought both Catherine and I just a tremendous amount of joy.
Then we travel from the west to our nation's capital to meet Stumpy, a Washington, D.C. cherry tree with quite the cult following. The tree still blooms every spring, despite its unhealthy appearance, inspiring tourists and locals alike.
It's not the prettiest. It's not the healthiest. Still, tourists and locals alike can't get enough of this celebrity.
Just stands out, holds his own year after year.
I think it's the underdog, It's the underdog. He's still making it.
Stumpy never dies. Stumpy never gives up.
Photographer Kevin Ambrose sells a Seasons of Stumpy wall calendar.
This past December, I decorated Stumpy like a Charlie Brown Christmas tree and took a photo of Stumpy with Christmas bulbs.
That's all coming up right here on Here Comes the Sun. Two-time Academy Award winner Michael Douglas has appeared in some of the biggest and buzziest movies of the last 6 decades, including Wall Street and Fatal Attraction. But one thing he hasn't tackled until now, historical drama. His new Apple TV Plus series, Franklin, tells the story of how the founding father petitioned France to help fund the Revolutionary War. Here's Mo Rocca.
That theater was here when I was here 60 years ago.
It's been a long time since he was a student here, but on the campus of University of California, Santa Barbara, Michael Douglas still knows his way around.
This used to be this was a World War II military Marine base, so it was all filled with like barracks.
The theater with his name on it is a new addition.
This is the most expensive lobby that you're ever going to find. I think it's appropriate that it's under the men's room and the women's room.
But when Douglas was actually enrolled here, he didn't have the same sense of direction.
And getting to my 3rd year in school, they called me into the counselor's office and they said, you have to declare a major. I said, I don't know, man. I think, and I thought theater would be easy. I can't say I had any big burning desire, but I thought, well, maybe I know something about it. My mother's a stage actress, my father's an actor, and so I reluctantly started.
Always getting to be a problem.
His mother was actress Diana Douglas, seen here in 1955's The Indian Fighter, opposite Michael's father, the legendary Kirk Douglas.
I made myself a promise, Griggs. I swore that if I ever got out of this place, I'd die before I'd watch two men fight to the death again.
At first, Michael didn't make quite the same impression as his parents.
Did you perform in this space?
Oh yeah, right here on this stage, with my little wastebasket right off stage. I used to get sick every time. I had terrible stage fright.
Right.
It's terrible stage fright. And then dive and come on out and give it my all.
But that unpleasant taste was soon replaced by the sweet smell of success.
How are you, Nurse Ratched? I'm
happy to be back.
In 1976, Douglas won an Oscar for producing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. In 1988, he took home another one for his performance in Wall Street.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
On both sides of the camera, Douglas has shown uncanny instincts for choosing projects that meet the moment. His Gordon Gekko came to personify the avarice of the 1980s.
An accident in a nuclear power plant. I don't know that.
1979's The China Syndrome, about the dangers of nuclear power, hit theaters only 12 days before the 3 Mile Island disaster. So it would seem his latest project is an outlier.
Monsieur Dr. Franklin de Philadelphia. What on earth are you meant to be?
An American.
Why did you want to play Ben Franklin?
Wow. I guess I've never done any period pictures. So that was part of the reason.
In the series Franklin, streaming on Apple TV+, Douglas plays Benjamin Franklin during his 8-year tenure in Paris. That's where the Founding Fathers spent most of the Revolutionary War, petitioning France for aid in the fight against the British.
How long must we stay?
Until we win France to our side and secure our independence. Or we are hanged.
But while 18th century France certainly qualifies as period, Douglas sees the series as every bit as contemporary as his other work.
I mean, for me, this series is such a reminder of how fragile democracy is. When you start thinking about the time we first created our Constitution, and to see the kind of shape that we're in now, it's a reminder.
The success of the revolution was by no means assured. Had the Americans failed, the would-be founders would have been hanged. Franklin, America's first diplomat, understood the need to go slow and steady with the French.
You know, and there's a quote in the show, it's diplomacy must never be a siege, but a seduction.
Of Passy.
Je suis enchanté. And he got in a lot of trouble with his fellow Congress members, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and a couple of others, because it took 8 years while he was over here to achieve what he wanted to.
Do they mean to attack us?
No, they mean to see me. They have it in their heads that I invented electricity. Who am I to dissuade them?
It was worth the wait. Benjamin Franklin secured the support of the French. Their money and arms were critical to the survival of the American Republic. Franklin left France at the age of 79, the current age of the man sitting in front of me.
Ben Franklin had one hell of a third act. I mean, the last third of his life was the most productive, by many accounts, his happiest period. Is that something that inspires you?
Yeah, this has been a great time for me, but I've been very fortunate. Catherine and I have been together, it'll be 25 years come this year.
Douglas met actress Catherine Zeta-Jones in 1998 at a film festival. While Franklin took years to woo France, Douglas worked a little faster.
On your first date with Catherine, you said to her,
"You did your homework." Well, I blurted out, "I'm going to be the father of your children."
Okay, now,
go on.
You were in your late 50s at this point. Yeah. When you said that, did you think, wait a minute, do I really want to have children at this age?
With Catherine Zeta-Jones, yeah. I think so, yeah. Oh, yeah. I think we could do that. If you twist my arm, oh, that's far enough, okay. That'll be fine.
They're the parents of Dylan and Karis, who are half-siblings to Cameron, Douglas's son from his first marriage. Michael Douglas's children and his film work are his legacy, as is this stretch of land down the coast from his alma mater.
I had to say, this is just a lousy view.
The Douglas Family Preserve in Santa Barbara is today a favorite spot for dog walkers, recreational paragliders, and the man himself.
I read about this in the paper. They were trying to save this spot here, so I just signed up and they said, if you contribute X, you name the park after you.
60 years after he reluctantly stepped on stage, Michael Douglas is looking out, feeling very much at ease.
And one of the joys I get is when people recognize you and say, hey, thanks for the park, it's great. So to see it now and to see the importance means a lot.
Up next, an exclusive excerpt from Mo Rocca's chat with Michael Douglas. Something you can only see right here on Here Comes the Sun. Stay with us.
But there was that time where I was probably doing too much. But saying that, I had a lot of fun.
As promised, here's more from Mo Rocca's interview with Michael Douglas.
Do you have a favorite bit of Ben Franklin wisdom?
Well, you know what? Not per se. I looked at it around the same time. I've become really interested in Stoicism. And you reach that point in your life about your spiritual life, your age, and looking back at the Stoics. And there's actually a lot of Ben Franklin's philosophies that kind of match up against the Stoics. But I don't have per se. I guess I'm more in awe of what this guy, who didn't go beyond 12 years old in school, accomplished, and his voracious ability of reading and learning. I wish I could think of one quote. There's so many that we use today, that are ones that come from Ben Franklin. That it's really amazing.
There's not a lot of sex in the series because there's this idea that people have that Ben Franklin was, just real going at it all his life, basically, until the end. That's not true. It's more, we see you mostly flirting over there.
Yeah, I think he has a professional role to appeal, and he certainly enjoys the act and art of flirting, which certainly was more popular back then than it is now, per se. Now they just go for it. Doesn't be not much of a dance involved.
Right. Okay. But Ben Franklin really knew how to do that dance.
He knew how to do that dance.
And the clothes you get to wear.
I know, it was really fun. Beautiful job. Mostly we shot it all in Paris. I was actually the only American actor. It was all French actors and British English actors on the other side. I'd say a good third of the pieces with subtitles. The scenes that are in French have subtitles, which seem to work very effectively. And I had probably the best time I've ever had on a production. Paris may have had something to do with it, but it was really, really well organized. We were there about 8 months in Paris, and it was a wonderful opportunity to learn a lot about our own history, which I didn't know as well as France's.
Do you think that there is a parallel between the diplomacy that Ben Franklin had to do, cajoling the French to come onto the American side, and getting a movie made, which is hard to do in Hollywood?
I do. I think it was an element. Obviously, they're dealing with much more serious issues. I always have to remind people, movies, the most difficult thing about movies is how expensive they are for 2 hours of entertainment.
Yeah.
We do get away with murder in the efforts of how much we will spend to make a piece of art or a commercial film. But yes, I think there's a lot to be said about the negotiating and talking somebody into and persuading them that they're right for the part.
What has it been like raising 2 children in your 50s, 60s, and into your 70s?
I have to thank my kids, Dylan and Karis. They're just extraordinary beings, and I probably certainly have to thank their mom and Catherine. They've just been a joy. We've had no issues per se. Had a lovely life together. Dylan is completely out of school now, and Karis got 1 more year of college. But they brought both Catherine and I just a tremendous amount of joy, and we have a lot of. I think the Yiddish word is nachas. Yeah. A lot of nachas with them, and I'm just sliding by just now. I'm reached the point in terms of skiing and a couple of other activities that I'm no longer able to keep up with them. on any basis. But it's nice having somebody look after you and say, "You okay, Dad?"
When you look back over the course of your life, maybe even compare it to Ben Franklin. I mean, he enjoyed life at the same time that he was so productive. Have you enjoyed life enough?
I guess it depends who you ask. For me personally, yeah. I mean, if I look back, I'd say be careful what you wish for, because there was earlier in my career when I won an Oscar as a producer, which I never anticipated getting involved in producing, which brought me into this whole area, as well as my acting going from television, from streets of San Francisco into feature films. There was a while when I had a company and actually had the ability to finance films and all of that, that I was overwhelmed, that I can't say that I really managed it, enjoyed it well. It was just overwhelming. And basically you'd be off acting while your production company is working, and you come back to really a pile of crap. You get 6 or 8 scripts in development that were not there yet. You had to start working on them. And usually you were exhausted coming off a picture. So there was that time. It's a high quality problem, I understand, but there was that time where I was probably doing too much. But saying that, I had a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun. And a lot of it has to go with the locations that I've been on working to. I enjoy making films in different places. I enjoy the fact of getting to know an area and a place, as well as the filmmakers that you're involved with.
Up next, a sappy ending for what you might call a celebrity. Welcome back. Each spring, the blooming cherry trees along the tidal basin in Washington, D.C. attract visitors from all over the world. But a little tree named Stumpy, who might not live up to the grandeur of some of his botanical brethren, has fans flocking for a different reason. Because this is Stumpy's final spring, before it's removed to construct a higher seawall to protect all the cherry trees from rising oceans and saltwater detrimental to their roots. Faith Salie pays tribute to the beloved in bloom.
With Congress mired in gridlock and a presidential campaign bitterly dividing voters, it can seem like Washington doesn't have much to offer in the way of bipartisanship. But there is a unifying figure in D.C., and like our government, it has 3 branches.
This tree, affectionately known as Stumpy.
A beloved tree known as Stumpy.
Woo-hoo!
Yes, Stumpy. The homely, hollowed-out husk of a cherry tree by the D.C. tidal basin. It's not the prettiest. It's not the healthiest. Still, tourists and locals alike can't get enough of this celebrity.
Just stands out, holds his own year after year.
I think it's the underdog, It's the underdog. He's still making it.
Stumpy never dies. Stumpy never gives up.
Photographer Kevin Ambrose sells a Seasons of Stumpy wall calendar.
This past December, I decorated Stumpy like a Charlie Brown Christmas tree and took a photo of Stumpy with Christmas bulbs. And it was popular.
Do you think Stumpy's beautiful?
No, I don't. I think Stumpy is quite a rotting little tree, but it's so ugly, it's beautiful. Make it that way.
If you look at the lower 80% of him, you would say he's dead. And then yet every spring, he puts out these beautiful blossoms.
National Mall spokesperson Mike Litterst says this lovable runt endures despite its inhospitable habitat.
The amount of water that is coming over the seawalls is simply far more than the roots of the cherry trees are capable of withstanding. Quite simply, it has killed a lot of the trees.
Sea levels at the tidal basin have risen about a foot over the last century, due in part to climate change. A new $113 million repair project will raise seawalls and widen walkways. The bad news? 158 cherry trees will have to be removed. And Stumpy is on the chopping block.
Now that cherry trees' days are numbered.
When word came, reaction was swift. Trumpet serenades, floral tributes. A delegation from the Japanese embassy came by to pay their respects. The fragile tree even had to be fenced off for its own safety, but a reprieve is not in the cards. Stumpy's frailty makes the prospect of uprooting and replanting it impractical.
Is it bittersweet for you?
I think right now it's still bitter. We have to fix the seawall. We are losing cherry trees every year because these seawalls are failing, and we can't replace those trees until we fix the problem.
The National Mall will actually see a net gain in cherry trees after replacements are planted. Clippings from Stumpy will be used to grow genetic clones, and the dead trees will be ground into mulch to enrich the soil.
It's kind of like a sacrifice story.
It's a sacrifice, and it's also the full cycle, the full succession of a forest. The wood.
National Mall arborist Matthew Morrison says Stumpy will nourish other trees for generations to come. A lasting legacy, long after its final bloom.
When we as people sometimes feel like we would lay down and quit, we see Stumpy just fighting and gracing us with beautiful flowers. There's a fabulous spirit there, and the public identifies with that.
I'm Lee Cowan. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you right here next time on Here Comes the Sun.